a late Sunday night teaching. All right. Um, so I know that it's late. It is 9:41 Central Standard Time, and I'm a little blurry here, so I don't know if I'm going to be blurry for you. I apologize if I am. On my end, it doesn't look super clear, but my content will be clear, and that is the point. So I'm going live tonight talking about pricing, and I'm doing it now because my kids are asleep. Yay! So for the upcoming year, I am going to be having a new topic for every month, and this month's topic is talking about rates and pricing. So if you're able to join me tonight or just watch the replay, welcome. And I'm going to refer to my notes, which I will happily send over to you guys after this is over. If you're interested in having a downloadable PDF just to kind of go over some of the things that I'm talking about so you can refresh your memory. And this is just some food for thought. It's a little bit of strategy about how to set your rates. It's some of the advice that I would have from doing this for the last, what is it now, 13 or so years. So I hope that you find this helpful. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments, and I'm happy to give you the help that I can. So let's get started. I'm going to be talking about 4 different things on pricing and getting paid. So the 4 different topics that I think are relevant to pricing and getting paid are your strategy, your mindset, the structure, and how you actually get paid by brides. So strategy, mindset, structure, and getting paid. So some things to think about when you're setting up your pricing with your strategy is, what is your market like? So are you in a small town? Are you in a big town? Is it a busy city? Are there tons of wedding venues, a lot of competition? Or are you in a small town where there's not a lot going on? There's not a lot of venues. Maybe there's not a lot of people who do bridal hair. So those are things to think about, particularly what city, what area you live in, what kind of the average prices that people spend on weddings in your area. So that's going to help determine your rates a lot. And you're not going to be able to charge the same rates in a small town in Iowa as you would be able to do in like a New York City or something like that. And even where I live, I'm in Minnesota, and I live in the capital area, so the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and I can charge a lot more here than I could if I was 2 hours away out in the country. So that is just something to think about with pricing. Okay, the next thing that I want you to think about in your strategy for how to price yourself is your experience level. So if you are more experienced and you've got a lot of weddings under your belt, you can price yourself a little bit higher because your expertise is at that level. If you are newer in the industry and you're just trying to get yourself as many weddings as possible so you can start to build up not only your brand but your confidence, then maybe charge a little bit less so you can start to get those brides through the door, build your brand up, get more confidence in your skills and what you're doing, get more referrals, and really help you to build more credibility for your company. That will help by lowering your prices a little bit so you can get more people in through the door. So just thinking about where your experience is at. The next thing I want you to think about is, do you need more weddings to establish your brand? So that's kind of just what I was saying before, is that if you are trying to establish yourself, getting a lot of reviews, trying to get referrals, get yourself known by other wedding vendors like photographers and venues and things like that, then you might want to price yourself a little bit lower so you can get more weddings throughout the year. So that's something to think about as well. And then just on a practical level, when you're thinking about your strategy, is how many weddings do you want? What's full to you? That's going to be different for everybody. So I know that, in photography, for example, I have a good photographer friend who said, I can only do 25. 25 is totally my max. And then I had another person who was like, I definitely need to have at least 75. Those are huge differences, and really that comes down to what you need for your business, not only for your numbers, so what you need to make the kind of money that you need to make, but also what's your capacity. Do you work in a salon as well? So maybe you don't have every Saturday available. So you just need to think about, how many weddings do you want to have in the year? Think about that before you get started, and then you can start to think about how to price yourself accordingly. And then the last thing as far as strategy for setting your rates is concerned is you really want to think about, what is the cost of running your business? You might be new, and then you might not have a lot of business expenses yet. But if you are a little more established and you're paying for marketing, you're paying for a website, and maybe you're paying for an accountant, and you're paying for a lot of products, maybe you don't live close to a lot of wedding venues, so you're doing a lot of traveling. Those are all costs associated with running your business, and so you need to think about that when you are pricing yourself, because everything that you have as an expense is going to be taken away from your profit. So that is something to consider as well when you are setting your rates. Okay, moving on. The next thing is your mindset. So I'm just going to go through this quick list of things that sometimes are what's getting in the way of us and our pricing. So it might be that you're thinking, okay, I need to raise my rates, or I'm trying to think about how to start out with my rates, but you have some mind blocks to get over. So some of those might be, do you feel guilty charging a certain amount? Do you feel like you're not worth a specific amount? Are you scared brides won't want to book you if you're a certain price? Are you nervous people will question your experience? Are you nervous that you're going to get pushback from brides? Now, do you decide your rates based entirely on what others are doing? Or are you looking at your own experience and the things that you need for your wedding or for your business? And then do you raise your rates because you think you're supposed to, or people tell you that you should? Or do you raise them strategically because your bottom line is going up and your experience level is getting better? Things like that. So those are things that you want to think about in your mindset. Are there anything that I said there in that list that resonates with you? Because we want to work on pulling some of that emotion out of raising our rates and thinking about practically what we need to make to have the kind of business that we want, right? We can't just be doing it out of our emotions and what we feel is good. I'm really guilty of that myself. So if you're there, I am right there with you. It is a challenge for me to get over some of these things. Okay, the next one is structure. So this is just basically, how are you setting your rates? How are you laying them out? Do you have packages? Is everything a la carte? Is your trial included? Do you have a trial and a day of package? Are they separate? Are your prices all inclusive, or do you have a lot of extras? So for example, do you charge extra for travel? Is the tip included or not? Do you charge extra for extensions? Do you charge extra for coming on site? Do you charge extra for extra long hair? Those are some of the things I want you to think about when you're setting up your structure. How much is your deposit? Do you require that in advance? Do you require a percentage of the overall fee that you're charging, or is it just a flat rate? In packages, consider, how are you doing packages? Are you doing hair and makeup? Are you doing a number of people? Do you have minimums? So do you have minimums to book you? Those are all things to think about when you're setting up the structure of your rates. So one thing to think about that I wrote down in my notes for packages is sometimes when you have a package, you encourage people to actually book more with you. So for example, say you just have everything a la carte, and then a bride comes and she's got 4 bridesmaids, and she just picks your, bride plus 4 people, and then they pay and they're done. Well, what if you had a package that was bride plus 5? That saved a little bit of money, but it was more than if it was bride plus 4, right? Individually. She might look at that package and think, oh, maybe my personal attendant wants to get her hair done, or maybe my mom wants to get her hair done, and add a person that maybe normally wouldn't because you have a package. So that can help to encourage sometimes brides to book more. So that's just the structure and how you lay things out. And there's no right or wrong. There's just different ways to do it for every business and every person and what makes the most sense for you. I'll tell you that in the beginning, I did everything a la carte because that was easier for me. And then I started to experiment with packages because I wanted to see if that would start to increase my profits. And I also had more capacity to kind of work out how I was going to charge for those packages. So it seemed a little messy before. I didn't quite know how to figure that out. And then as I got more experienced, I felt like I could handle doing the packages. So you just have to think what works for you and what works for your business. Okay, and then the very last thing is getting paid. That's just, how do you get paid? Do you get paid on the day of, or do you charge in advance? Do you send out an invoice? Do you collect checks? Do you use cash apps? Do you use cash only on the day of? What do you do? Do you account for your credit card fees? Do you offer payment plans? And if you don't collect payments in advance, why or why not? Is that something you've considered? So those are some things to think about when brides pay you. I often recommend thinking about what makes it easiest on the bride. So you want to think what's easy for you, but also what is going to give your bride a really good experience. A couple things just to wrap things up, and then we'll be done here, is there's a bride for every budget. So it's hard, I think, when we're in our own mindset and thinking, no, don't ever pay this much for that. But there's a bride for every budget of everything. So there's going to be some brides who really prioritize hair and makeup and they're willing to invest a lot in it. Now, there's other brides who are only getting their hair and makeup done because their mom wants them to. And so they could care less about it and they don't want to spend a lot of money. So you're going to have someone for everything. There's brides that want to spend, $5,000 on their wedding. And then there's brides that are going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their wedding. So you've got the whole gamut. Just a tip. Know that there's a bride for every budget. Okay, don't be afraid to experiment with your pricing. You can always try things for a few months, and then if it's not working, change it up. You're the only one that knows your pricing. Nobody else does except for past brides, and your past brides aren't your new clients. So you can experiment with pricing and figure out what works well for you. And then just as a reminder, the busiest season is usually between the holidays of Thanksgiving through New Year's and then into Valentine's Day. So that's kind of the busiest engagement season. And so you'll start to see a huge spike in inquiries around the holidays, like December, January, and through February. So that's a good time to kind of try a new pricing structure and see what kind of leads you get. And then if that's really not working for you and you're getting crickets, change it up in the middle of that and see if you get any more momentum with all those inquiries coming in. So I recommend to kind of experiment a little bit in that time frame and try new pricing structures out, because that's when you're going to start to get a lot of inquiries that you can kind of play around with. So those are some of the things that I want you to think about when you're thinking about pricing. I've got a PDF to go with this. I'll post it in the group here so you can see it and kind of see my reference points. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you price yourself too. So anyway, thank you for joining me tonight, and I'll continue to kind of put some feelers out there and prompts in the group about pricing, and hopefully we can just continue to have great conversation about how we price ourselves as freelance bridal hairstylists. And if you're struggling in this area, this is a big community. So I really encourage you to just reach out, ask questions in the group, and see what others are doing and what works for other people's businesses, because we can really help to learn from each other and build each other up. All right, I hope you guys have a great night, and I will see you all soon. Bye-bye.